What would you do if you discovered that the person you trusted most had been living a double life right under your nose? That every smile, every promise, every moment of tenderness was carefully calculated? My name is Elena, and I'm about to tell you how a single letter hidden in a drawer shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. This is the story of how I lost everything and found myself. The morning it all fell apart started like any other Tuesday. I was rushing through our downtown Seattle apartment, gathering files for a client presentation. My husband, Nathan Reed, was already dressed for work, sipping his coffee by the window overlooking Pike Place Market. He looked every bit the successful architect he claimed to be, sharp suit, confident posture, that easy smile that had made me fall in love with him 7 years ago. "Big day?" he asked, not looking up from his phone. "Huge. The Morrison account could make or break this quarter for me. I worked as a senior marketing consultant, the kind of job that demanded 60-hour weeks and constant travel." Nathan walked over and kissed my forehead. "You'll crush it. You always do." I should have noticed the distraction in his eyes. I should have wondered why he'd been coming home late so often, why his phone was suddenly always face down, why he'd changed his passcode. But I was too busy, too trusting, too blind. "I'll be home around 8, I said, grabbing my laptop bag. "Actually, I might be late too. Big deadline on the Belltown project." I nodded, already halfway out the door. It would be 3 weeks before I'd understand that there was no Belltown project. There never had been. The day everything changed was a Friday in late October. I'd left work early with a migraine, something that had been happening more frequently. Stress, I told myself. Just stress. I took an Uber home, my head pounding, wanting nothing more than to lie down in a dark room. When I opened the apartment door, I expected silence. Nathan wasn't supposed to be home for hours. Instead, I heard laughter. Female laughter, coming from our bedroom. My heart stopped. I stood frozen in the entryway, my keys still in my hand. Part of me wanted to run. Another part needed to know. I walked slowly down the hallway, each step feeling like I was moving through water. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the gap, I could see them. Nathan and a woman I'd never seen before, sitting close together on our bed, looking at something on his laptop. She was younger than me, maybe late 20s, with long dark hair and an easy confidence. She was wearing one of Nathan's shirts. "We should tell her soon," the woman said. "It's not fair to keep this going." Nathan sighed. "I know, Sophia. I know. I just need to figure out the right time. Elena's been under so much pressure at work. And there's the issue with her mother's estate." "You're making excuses," Sophia interrupted, but her voice was gentle. "The longer you wait, the harder it gets." I pushed the door open. They both jumped. "Elena!" Nathan's face went white. "You're home early." I looked between them, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. "Who is she?" Sophia stood up, her expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "I'm Sophia Chen. I'm Nathan's partner." "Partner?" The word felt foreign in my mouth. Nathan stood too, his hands raised as if approaching a wild animal. "Elena, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice was surprisingly calm. "Explain why there's another woman in our bedroom wearing your shirt?" "It's not what you think," Nathan said quickly. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Really? Because it looks pretty clear to me." Sophia stepped forward. "Nathan and I have been together for 8 months. We're planning to." 8 months. The room tilted. I grabbed the doorframe for support. 8 months. While I'd been working late, traveling for clients, believing we were building our future together, he'd been building a completely different life. "I was going to tell you," Nathan said, his voice pleading. "I just didn't know how." "Get out." The words came from somewhere deep inside me, cold and final. "Both of you. Get out of my apartment." "Elena, please." "Get out." They gathered their things quickly. Sophia left first, avoiding my eyes. Nathan paused at the door. "We need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. I want you gone." After they left, I walked through the apartment like a ghost. Everything looked the same, but nothing was real anymore. The coffee maker we'd bought together in Vancouver. The framed photo from our wedding in Napa. The throw pillows I'd spent hours choosing. All of it was based on a lie. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall until the sun set and the apartment filled with shadows. I don't know what made me go to Nathan's study that night. Maybe intuition. Maybe desperation. I'd never snooped before. I'd always believed in trust, in privacy, in respecting boundaries. How foolish that seemed now. His desk was meticulously organized, as always. I opened drawers at random, not even sure what I was looking for. Bank statements, old receipts, architectural sketches. And then, in the bottom drawer underneath a stack of magazines, I found a manila folder. Inside was a letter. My hands trembled as I read it. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize, addressed to Nathan, dated 3 months ago. The words blurred together at first, then came into sharp focus. Dear Mr. Reed, regarding the transfer of assets from the Elena Vasquez Trust Fund, per your instructions and the power of attorney documents you provided. I read it again. Then again. Power of attorney? I'd never signed any power of attorney. And my mother's trust fund, the inheritance she'd left me when she died 2 years ago, I'd barely touched it. It was supposed to be our safety net, our future. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and logged into my bank account. The trust fund account showed a balance of $3,247. It should have been $340,000. I scrolled through the transaction history. Transfer after transfer, all authorized by Elena Vasquez Reed, going back over a year. To accounts I didn't recognize. To businesses I'd never heard of. The room spun. I ran to the bathroom and vomited. When I finally stopped shaking, I called the one person I knew I could trust. My best friend from college, Rachel Kim, who happened to be a forensic accountant. Rachel, I need your help. Something's very wrong. Rachel arrived at my apartment within an hour, her laptop bag over her shoulder and a grim expression on her face. I'd sent her screenshots of everything I'd found. Elena, she said as soon as I opened the door, this is bad. This is identity theft and fraud. You need to call the police. I need to understand what happened first. Can you help me trace where the money went? We spent the next 6 hours going through every document I could find. Rachel worked with frightening efficiency, her fingers flying over her keyboard, pulling up records, cross-referencing accounts. Around 2 a.m., she sat back and rubbed her eyes. Okay, here's what I've found so far. The money from your trust fund has been funneled through 3 different LLC accounts, all registered in Nathan's name. From there, it's been used for. Elena, did you know Nathan has been investing in cryptocurrency? What? No. He always said crypto was too risky. Well, he's been trading heavily for the past year. And losing. Badly. I'm seeing losses of over $200,000. My stomach dropped. So he stole my inheritance to gamble? It looks that way. But there's more. Rachel pulled up another screen. These transactions here? They're regular payments to an address in Capitol Hill. $3,000 a month like clockwork. What address? She showed me. It was a high-rise apartment building, one of those new luxury developments with rooftop pools and concierge service. I think, Rachel said carefully, that's where Sophia lives. So he hadn't just been cheating. He'd been using my money to support his mistress. I felt something inside me crack. Not break. I'd already broken when I found them together. This was different. This was the last piece of the person I used to be falling away, leaving behind someone harder, colder, clearer. What else? I asked, my voice steady. Rachel hesitated. Elena, are you sure you want to? Everything. I need to know everything. She took a deep breath. There are credit cards in your name that you didn't open. Loans. A car lease. He's been forging your signature for over a year, maybe longer. The total debt in your name is close to $80,000. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, Rachel was watching me with concern. I'm okay, I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. What do I do now? First, we secure everything. Change every password, freeze your credit, document everything. Then you call the police and a lawyer. This isn't just divorce, Elena. This is a crime. We worked until dawn. By the time the sun came up, I had changed every password I had, frozen my credit reports, and made copies of every document. Rachel had compiled a detailed report of the financial fraud. I also called a locksmith and had the apartment locks changed. When Nathan finally came back that afternoon, I'd texted him that I was at work. He found his key didn't work. He pounded on the door. Elena, open up. What's going on? I opened the door but stood in the doorway, blocking his entrance. You don't live here anymore. His face cycled through confusion, anger, and finally fear when he saw my expression. Elena, come on. We can work through this. Did you forge my signature to steal my inheritance? He went pale. I can explain. Did you open credit cards in my name? Elena, Did you use my mother's money to pay for your mistress's apartment? Silence. The police are already involved, I said quietly. My lawyer has everything. If you come near me or this apartment again, I'll have you arrested. You can't do this. His voice rose. We're married. We can figure this out. We're getting divorced. And you're going to prison. Now get away from my door. I closed it in his face and locked it. Then I slid down to the floor and finally let myself cry. The lawyer Rachel recommended was a woman named Patricia Morales, a sharp-eyed attorney in her 50s who specialized in financial fraud and complex divorces. Her office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and steel, the kind of place that radiated competence and cost. Mrs. Reed, she said as I sat down across from her desk, I've reviewed the documents your friend sent over. This is one of the most systematic cases of spousal fraud I've seen in years. Call me Elena, please. I don't want to be Mrs. Reed anymore. She nodded approvingly. Elena, first, let me be clear about what we're dealing with. Your husband has committed multiple felonies: identity theft, forgery, wire fraud, and embezzlement. The question isn't whether he's guilty. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is how we protect you and recover what's been stolen. Can we recover it? Any of it? Patricia leaned back in her chair. Some of it, possibly. The crypto losses are likely gone forever. That's the nature of bad investments. But the apartment he's been paying for, the car, other assets, those we can go after. We'll also push for restitution as part of any criminal plea deal. Over the next hour, she outlined the strategy. We would file for divorce immediately, with a motion to freeze all joint assets. Simultaneously, we'd file a police report and work with the district attorney's office on criminal charges. We'd also sue the bank that had allowed the fraudulent transactions to go through for so long. This won't be easy, Patricia warned. Nathan will likely hire his own attorney and try to paint this as a misunderstanding between spouses. He might claim you knew about the investments, that you gave verbal permission. I have proof I didn't, I said, thinking of Rachel's detailed timeline showing I'd been traveling or in meetings during most of the fraudulent transactions. Good. We'll need all of that. I also want you to prepare yourself emotionally. This could take months, even years. And it's going to get ugly. I thought about Nathan's face when I closed the door on him, the fear in his eyes when he realized I knew everything. It's already ugly. Nathan didn't stay away for long. 3 days after I changed the locks, he showed up at my office. Security called up to warn me. There's a Nathan Reed here to see you. Should we send him up? My hand tightened on the phone. No. Tell him I'm in a meeting. He says it's urgent. He's being persistent. I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to hide. Another part, the part that was growing stronger each day, wanted to face him. To show him that I wasn't the person he thought he could manipulate anymore. I'll come down. Nathan was pacing in the lobby when I arrived. He looked terrible, unshaven, his shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he rushed forward. Elena, thank God. You won't return my calls, you changed the locks. You stole from me, Nathan. You forged my signature. You used my mother's money to pay for your affair. What exactly did you expect? People in the lobby were starting to stare. Nathan lowered his voice. Can we please talk somewhere private? No. Say what you came to say, or leave. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing. Now it just looked manipulative. I made mistakes. I know that. But it's not as bad as you think. I was trying to build something for us. By stealing from me? I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. The crypto investments were supposed to double, triple the money. I was trying to secure our future. By lying to me every single day? By sleeping with another woman and using my inheritance to support her. His jaw clenched. Sophia has nothing to do with the financial issues. Sophia has everything to do with it. My voice rose despite myself. You were living a double life, Nathan. A whole separate existence that you built with my money, my trust, my stupidity in believing you. I love you, Elena. I made mistakes, but I still love you. We can fix this. I stared at him, this man I'd shared 7 years of my life with, and felt nothing but cold clarity. You don't love me. You loved what I could give you. My money, my trust, my willingness to work myself to exhaustion while you built your fantasy life. That's not true. I've filed for divorce. Criminal charges are pending. If you want to communicate with me, do it through my lawyer. I turned to walk away. Elena, wait. He grabbed my arm. I yanked it away. Don't touch me. Ever again. Security was already moving toward us. Nathan looked around, seemed to realize he'd crossed a line, and backed away. "You're going to regret this," he said, his voice low and bitter. "You're throwing away everything we built together." "No," I replied calmly. "You did that the first time you forged my signature." I walked back to the elevator, my legs shaking but my head held high. Behind me, I heard security escorting Nathan out. In the reflection of the elevator doors, I saw myself, pale, thin, but standing straight. Not broken. Not yet. Rachel called me that evening with news that made my blood run cold. "Elena, I found something else. And you need to sit down for this." I was already sitting on my couch, a glass of wine untouched on the coffee table. "What is it?" "The fraud goes back further than we thought. Much further. I was able to access some older records through a contact at your bank. Nathan's been siphoning money from your accounts since 6 months after you got married." The room seemed to tilt. 6 months? That's almost 7 years ago. I know. It started small, a few $100s here and there, always from accounts you didn't check regularly. Your savings account, that emergency fund your grandmother set up for you. Over the years, it escalated. "How much total?" Rachel was silent for a moment. "Elena, including your mother's trust fund and the other accounts, I estimate he's stolen close to $500,000. I couldn't breathe. $500,000. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks, traveling constantly, sacrificing time with friends and family to build what I thought was our shared future, Nathan had been systematically robbing me. "There's more," Rachel continued gently. "I found evidence of other women before Sophia. Credit card charges for hotels, jewelry, dinners at expensive restaurants while you were traveling. This has been his pattern for years." I hung up and ran to the bathroom, where I was violently sick. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. She looked haunted, destroyed. But beneath the pain, I felt something else stirring. Anger. Pure, white-hot rage. Nathan hadn't just betrayed me. He'd built his entire relationship with me on lies. From almost the very beginning, I'd been nothing but a resource to him. A bank account with a heartbeat. The next day, I did something unexpected. I went to Sophia's apartment. Rachel thought I was crazy. Patricia advised strongly against it. But I needed to know something that only Sophia could tell me. Did she know? Did she know where the money was coming from? The doorman tried to stop me. "Miss Chun isn't expecting visitors. Tell her Elena Reed is here. She'll want to talk to me." 5 minutes later, I was riding the elevator to the 14th floor. Sophia answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back. Without makeup, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "Elena." She seemed genuinely surprised. "I don't think we should." "Did you know?" I interrupted. "Did you know he was stealing from me?" Her face went pale. "Stealing? What are you talking about?" "The apartment you're living in. The money he's been spending on you for 8 months. It came from me. From my inheritance, from accounts he hacked, from credit cards he opened in my name. Did you know?" Sophia stepped back, her hand over her mouth. "Oh my God. No, I didn't know. He told me. He said he'd saved the money, that his architecture firm was doing really well." "There is no architecture firm. Not anymore. He lost his job 8 months ago and never told me. He's been pretending to go to work every day." "What?" Sophia sank onto her couch. "But he showed me projects, blueprints. Old work. Lies." I stood in her doorway, watching her process this. "How did you meet?" "At a coffee shop in Capitol Hill. He said he was separated, going through a difficult divorce. That you'd grown apart, wanted different things." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I never would have, if I'd known he was still married, still living with you, stealing from you." I believed her. Maybe I was naive again, but I believed the shock in her eyes. "He told me he loved me," Sophia whispered. "That we were going to build a life together. That once the divorce was final, we'd move to Portland, start fresh. He told me he loved me too," I said quietly. "This morning, in my office lobby. Just before he threatened me." Sophia's head snapped up. "He threatened you?" When people like Nathan are cornered, they get desperate. We sat in silence for a moment. 2 women who'd both been deceived by the same man, for different reasons but with the same careful lies. "What are you going to do?" Sophia asked finally. "I'm going to make sure he faces consequences for what he's done. To me, and to you, and to whoever else he's hurt along the way." I stood up. "If you want to help, my lawyer's contact information is on this card. You might be able to testify about how he misrepresented his financial situation. Sophia took the card with trembling hands. Elena, I really am sorry. I know. So am I. It happened on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after I'd changed the locks. Patricia called to give me advance warning. The district attorney is moving forward with charges. They're arresting Nathan this morning at the hotel where he's been staying. I wanted you to know in case he tries to contact you. Thank you, I said, surprised by how calm I felt. Elena, this is good news. It means they believe they have a strong case. But I need to warn you. The trial, if it goes to trial, will be difficult. Nathan's attorney will try to paint you as a vindictive ex-wife exaggerating marital disputes. Let them try. I have documentation for everything. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and thought about the man I'd married. The Nathan I fell in love with had been charming, attentive, supportive of my career. Or had he? Looking back with clear eyes, I could see the patterns I'd missed. How he'd encouraged me to work longer hours, take more trips, focus on my career, all while he had free rein to do whatever he wanted. How he'd praised my independence while isolating me from friends and family. How he'd made me feel guilty for wanting to spend time with him instead of working. He'd been grooming me to be the perfect victim. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're destroying my life. I hope you're happy. Nathan. I blocked the number and called Patricia to report it. Another piece of evidence for the restraining order she was filing. That weekend, Rachel came over with takeout and more bad news. I kept digging, she said, spreading Thai food containers across my coffee table. And I found Nathan's real business. What do you mean? She pulled out her laptop. The crypto trading wasn't just bad investments. He was running a Ponzi scheme. Small scale, mostly targeting people from his old architecture firm and his college alumni network. He'd take their money, promise huge returns from his proprietary trading algorithm, and then use new investments to pay off old investors. I felt sick. How many people? At least 15 that I can identify. Maybe more. Total amount stolen is probably close to $2 million. Oh my God. Elena, you might not have been his only victim. You might have been his primary funding source, but he was scamming others too. Rachel looked at me seriously. This changes everything. The district attorney is going to want to know about this. And those other victims, they have a right to know. I thought about all those people Nathan had smiled at, charmed, convinced to trust him with their money. People like me who'd believed his lies. We tell them, I said. All of them. They deserve to know what he did. Rachel nodded. Patricia can help coordinate that. But Elena, this also means it's going to be bigger news than just a divorce. When word gets out about the Ponzi scheme, reporters might start calling you. I don't care about that anymore. I care about making sure he can't do this to anyone else. The article appeared in the Seattle Times 2 weeks later. Local man arrested for investment fraud scheme. Wife among primary victims. They'd kept my name out of it, referring to me only as Wife A, but everyone who knew us would figure it out quickly enough. My phone started ringing. Colleagues. Old friends. Even Nathan's brother, Marcus, who I hadn't spoken to in months. Elena, I just saw the news. I can't believe. Is it true? Marcus had always been the decent one in Nathan's family. Where Nathan was smooth and charming, Marcus was blunt and genuine. It's true. All of it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry for what he did to you. God, Elena, if I'd known. No one knew. That's how he wanted it. Marcus was silent for a moment. Our parents are going to be devastated. Nathan's parents. I'd barely thought about them. They were retired, living in Arizona, and we'd seen them maybe twice a year. Sweet people who thought their son could do no wrong. I'll call them, Marcus said. This isn't your responsibility. After we hung up, I stood at my apartment window looking out at the Seattle skyline. The Space Needle rose in the distance, the same view I'd looked at for 7 years. But everything felt different now. The city I'd built my life in felt foreign, like I was seeing it for the first time. That night, Nathan called from jail. I let it go to voicemail. Elena, please. I need to talk to you. They're charging me with wire fraud, identity theft. They're talking about 10 years in prison. Please, you have to help me. Tell them it was a misunderstanding between spouses. Tell them you gave me permission. Elena, please. I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. Please don't let them destroy me. I saved the voicemail. Patricia would want it for evidence. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and finally allowed myself to feel something other than anger. Grief. For the 7 years I'd lost. For the person I'd been before I knew the truth. For the future I'd imagined that would never exist. I cried until I had no tears left. And then, exhausted but somehow lighter, I fell asleep on my couch as the city lights twinkled outside my window. Patricia organized a meeting with the other victims of Nathan's Ponzi scheme. It was held in her conference room on a gray Saturday afternoon. I almost didn't go. The thought of facing all those people Nathan had hurt, knowing that my money had likely been used to pay some of them their fake returns, made me feel complicit somehow. But Rachel convinced me. You're a victim too, Elena. The biggest one. And they need to see that even the person closest to him didn't know. It'll help them feel less foolish. So I went. There were 12 people in the conference room when I arrived. Mostly middle-aged professionals. A dentist, 2 former colleagues from Nathan's architecture firm, a college professor, a small business owner. They looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and sympathy. An older man with graying hair spoke first. You're the wife? I nodded. I'm Elena. And I'm so sorry for what Nathan did to all of you. You don't need to apologize, a woman in her 40s said kindly. Patricia explained that you had no idea about any of this. We spent the next 2 hours sharing our stories. Each person described how Nathan had approached them, the promises he'd made, the documents he'd shown them. All fake, all carefully crafted to look legitimate. The dentist, Dr. Howard Chun, had invested his entire retirement savings, $300,000. He showed me returns of 15% over 6 months, Dr. Chun said, his voice hollow. I thought I'd finally be able to retire early, maybe travel with my wife. Now I'm 62 and starting over. A younger man named James spoke next. He was my friend. We played basketball together every Thursday. He came to my wedding. How do you do that? How do you look someone in the eye, smile, ask about their kids, and then rob them blind? I didn't have an answer. None of us did. The woman who'd spoken kindly to me earlier introduced herself as Margaret Yates. I'm a widow, she said. My husband died 3 years ago and left me with a modest life insurance policy. Nathan told me he could help me make it grow, so I wouldn't have to worry about my future. I gave him $150,000. It's gone. All of it. By the end of the meeting, I felt a strange sense of solidarity with these strangers. We'd all been targeted by the same predator, manipulated by the same lies. But we weren't alone anymore. As people filed out, Dr. Chin approached me. I know this must be hardest on you. 7 years of marriage. I can't imagine. At least I found out, I said. At least I can move forward now. I just wish I'd figured it out sooner, before he could hurt so many others. This isn't your fault, he said firmly. He's the one who made these choices. Not you. I wished I could believe that completely. Over the next month, the prosecution built their case. Patricia kept me updated on every development. They had Nathan's laptop, which contained detailed records of his scheme, spreadsheets tracking fake returns, templates for forged investment documents, even a separate email account he'd used to communicate with his victims. He kept everything, Patricia told me in amazement. It's like he thought he'd never get caught. Or maybe part of him wanted to get caught. They also had testimony from Sophia, who'd initially been terrified of being implicated, but had agreed to cooperate fully. She described how Nathan had spun elaborate stories about his success, his pending divorce, his plans for their future. All lies designed to manipulate her into a relationship that made him feel powerful. He's a narcissist, Patricia explained. Classic pattern. He needs constant validation, multiple sources of admiration and control. You weren't enough for him, Elena, because no one person could ever be enough. It was never about you being inadequate. It was about him being fundamentally broken. I'd started seeing a therapist, Dr. Lisa Hammond, twice a week. She helped me understand the psychological manipulation I'd been subjected to. It's called financial abuse, Dr. Hammond explained during one session. And it's often accompanied by emotional abuse, isolation, gaslighting, creating dependency. When you look back, do you see patterns of him making you doubt your own judgment? I thought about all the times Nathan had dismissed my concerns, told me I was being paranoid, made me feel guilty for not trusting him. Yes, all the time. That's classic gaslighting. He was systematically undermining your confidence in your own perceptions, so you'd be easier to control. Understanding the psychology helped, but it didn't erase the pain. At night, I'd lie awake replaying memories, seeing them through new eyes. Our wedding day, had he already been planning to use me? Our anniversary trips, Had they been funded by money stolen from me or his other victims? Every happy memory was now tainted, a beautiful surface hiding rot underneath. Nathan's attorney was a slick corporate lawyer named Richard Brennan who specialized in white-collar crime. His strategy became clear at the first pretrial hearing. Paint Nathan as a man who'd made bad investment decisions, not a criminal. Paint me as an angry ex-wife exaggerating marital issues for revenge. I sat in the courtroom gallery and watched Brennan argue that the transfers from my accounts had been authorized by me verbally, that Nathan and I had shared finances as married couples do, that his investment strategy had been risky but legal. Your Honor, Brennan said smoothly, this is fundamentally a domestic dispute being weaponized by the district attorney's office. Mrs. Reed is understandably angry about her husband's infidelity, but that doesn't make him a criminal. Patricia stood up, her voice sharp. Your Honor, the defendant forged Mrs. Reed's signature on power of attorney documents, opened credit cards in her name without her knowledge, and stole over $400,000 from accounts she inherited from her deceased mother. This isn't a domestic dispute. This is systematic financial fraud. And that's before we even address the Ponzi scheme that defrauded at least 12 other victims of nearly $2 million. The judge, an older woman named Sandra Okoye, looked at Brennan over her reading glasses. Mr. Brennan, the forged signatures alone constitute multiple felonies. I suggest you prepare a more substantial defense than marital disagreement. But Brennan wasn't done. Over the following weeks, his team subpoenaed my financial records, my work emails, my text messages with Rachel. They were looking for anything that could suggest I'd known about Nathan's activities or had benefited from them. It's a fishing expedition, Patricia assured me. They have nothing, so they're hoping to find something, anything, to muddy the waters. What they found instead were my own careful financial records. Spreadsheets tracking every penny I earned and spent, notes questioning certain account discrepancies that Nathan had explained away, emails to my bank asking about unauthorized transactions. Everything pointed to my complete ignorance of Nathan's schemes. But the process was invasive and humiliating. Strangers were reading my private messages, analyzing my spending habits, questioning my decisions. I felt violated all over again. The case broke wide open when Rachel discovered something that changed everything. She called me at work, her voice trembling with excitement. Elena, you need to sit down. I found Nathan's real accounts. What do you mean his real accounts? Offshore. Cayman Islands. He's been funneling money there for years, not just from you and his victims, but from other sources too. Money laundering, possibly. There's over $800,000 sitting in these accounts. My heart raced. Can we recover it? As people filed out, Dr. Chin approached me. I know this must be hardest on you. 7 years of marriage. I can't imagine. At least I found out, I said. At least I can move forward now. I just wish I'd figured it out sooner, before he could hurt so many others. This isn't your fault, he said firmly. He's the one who made these choices. Not you. I wished I could believe that completely. Over the next month, the prosecution built their case. Patricia kept me updated on every development. They had Nathan's laptop, which contained detailed records of his scheme, spreadsheets tracking fake returns, templates for forged investment documents, even a separate email account he'd used to communicate with his victims. He kept everything, Patricia told me in amazement. It's like he thought he'd never get caught. Or maybe part of him wanted to get caught. They also had testimony from Sophia, who'd initially been terrified of being implicated, but had agreed to cooperate fully. She described how Nathan had spun elaborate stories about his success, his pending divorce, his plans for their future. All lies designed to manipulate her into a relationship that made him feel powerful. He's a narcissist, Patricia explained. Classic pattern. He needs constant validation, multiple sources of admiration and control. You weren't enough for him, Elena, because no one person could ever be enough. It was never about you being inadequate. It was about him being fundamentally broken. I'd started seeing a therapist, Dr. Lisa Hammond, twice a week. She helped me understand the psychological manipulation I'd been subjected to. It's called financial abuse, Dr. Hammond explained during one session. And it's often accompanied by emotional abuse, isolation, gaslighting, creating dependency. When you look back, do you see patterns of him making you doubt your own judgment? I thought about all the times Nathan had dismissed my concerns, told me I was being paranoid, made me feel guilty for not trusting him. Yes, all the time. That's classic gaslighting. He was systematically undermining your confidence in your own perceptions, so you'd be easier to control. Understanding the psychology helped, but it didn't erase the pain. At night, I'd lie awake replaying memories, seeing them through new eyes. Our wedding day, had he already been planning to use me? Our anniversary trips, had they been funded by money stolen from me or his other victims? Every happy memory was now tainted, a beautiful surface hiding rot underneath. Nathan's attorney was a slick corporate lawyer named Richard Brennan who specialized in white-collar crime. His strategy became clear at the first pretrial hearing. Paint Nathan as a man who'd made bad investment decisions, not a criminal. Paint me as an angry ex-wife exaggerating marital issues for revenge. I sat in the courtroom gallery and watched Brennan argue that the transfers from my accounts had been authorized by me verbally, that Nathan and I had shared finances as married couples do, that his investment strategy had been risky but legal. Your Honor, Brennan said smoothly, this is fundamentally a domestic dispute being weaponized by the district attorney's office. Mrs. Reed is understandably angry about her husband's infidelity, but that doesn't make him a criminal. Patricia stood up, her voice sharp. Your Honor, the defendant forged Mrs. Reed's signature on power of attorney documents, opened credit cards in her name without her knowledge, and stole over $400,000 from accounts she inherited from her deceased mother. This isn't a domestic dispute. This is systematic financial fraud. And that's before we even address the Ponzi scheme that defrauded at least 12 other victims of nearly $2 million. The judge, an older woman named Sandra Okoye, looked at Brennan over her reading glasses. Mr. Brennan, the forged signatures alone constitute multiple felonies. I suggest you prepare a more substantial defense than marital disagreement. But Brennan wasn't done. Over the following weeks, his team subpoenaed my financial records, my work emails, my text messages with Rachel. They were looking for anything that could suggest I'd known about Nathan's activities or had benefited from them. It's a fishing expedition, Patricia assured me. They have nothing, so they're hoping to find something, anything, to muddy the waters. What they found instead were my own careful financial records. Spreadsheets tracking every penny I earned and spent, notes questioning certain account discrepancies that Nathan had explained away, emails to my bank asking about unauthorized transactions. Everything pointed to my complete ignorance of Nathan's schemes. But the process was invasive and humiliating. Strangers were reading my private messages, analyzing my spending habits, questioning my decisions. I felt violated all over again. The case broke wide open when Rachel discovered something that changed everything. She called me at work, her voice trembling with excitement. Elena, you need to sit down. I found Nathan's real accounts. What do you mean his real accounts? Offshore. Cayman Islands. He's been funneling money there for years, not just from you and his victims, but from other sources too. Money laundering, possibly. There's over $800,000 sitting in these accounts. My heart raced. Can we recover it? I've already sent everything to Patricia and the district attorney. This is huge, Elena. This proves premeditation, planning, intent to permanently deprive. This isn't a man who made bad investments. This is a man who built an entire criminal enterprise. When the prosecution revealed the offshore accounts in court, I watched Nathan's face go gray. Brennan requested an immediate recess, and I could see him having a heated, whispered argument with his client in the hallway. Patricia smiled grimly. They're going to offer a plea deal now. They have no choice. She was right. 2 days later, Brennan contacted the district attorney's office. Nathan would plead guilty to wire fraud, identity theft, and money laundering in exchange for a reduced sentence recommendation of 8 years and full restitution to all victims. You don't have to accept this, Patricia told me. We can push for trial, go for the maximum sentence. I thought about it. A trial would mean months more of this nightmare, more publicity, more having my life dissected in public. And Nathan would likely get convicted anyway. The evidence was overwhelming. What do the other victims want? I asked. Most of them want closure. And they want their money back faster, which the plea deal would facilitate. Then I'll accept it. I want this over. The plea hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in early December. I wore a navy suit and sat in the front row of the gallery, surrounded by the other victims. Nathan was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Judge Okoye reviewed the plea agreement carefully. Mr. Reed, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are admitting to these crimes and waiving your right to a trial? Yes, Your Honor. Nathan's voice was barely audible. And do you understand the consequences? You will be sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, required to pay full restitution to your victims, and will have a permanent criminal record. Yes, Your Honor. Very well. How do you plead to the charge of wire fraud? Guilty. Identity theft? Guilty. Money laundering? Guilty. With each guilty plea, I felt something inside me loosen. Not forgiveness. I wasn't anywhere near that yet. But acknowledgement. He was finally admitting what he'd done. Judge Okoye addressed the courtroom. Victims will have the opportunity to give impact statements at sentencing. That hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from today. Until then, Mr. Reed will remain in custody. As they led Nathan away, he looked back at me. Our eyes met for just a second. I saw fear there, and regret, and something that might have been genuine remorse. Or maybe it was just self-pity. I couldn't tell anymore, and I realized I didn't care. The victim impact statement was the hardest thing I'd ever had to write. Dr. Hammond helped me work through it in therapy. You don't owe him anything, she reminded me. Not kindness, not understanding, not mercy. This is your chance to tell the truth about what he did to you. I wrote and rewrote it a dozen times. Some versions were angry, full of rage and hurt. Others were cold and factual. In the end, I settled on honesty. The night before the sentencing, I read the final version to Rachel over FaceTime. Your Honor, my name is Elena Vasquez Reed, and I was married to Nathan Reed for 7 years. I thought I knew him. I thought we were building a life together. I was wrong about everything. Nathan didn't just steal my money. He stole my trust, my sense of reality, my ability to believe my own perceptions. He made me doubt myself at every turn, dismiss my instincts, feel guilty for questioning him. That kind of manipulation is abuse, and it's left scars that will take years to heal. I've lost my life savings, my inheritance from my mother, and 7 years of my life. But I've gained something too, clarity. I know now that I am stronger than I ever imagined. That I can survive betrayal and come out the other side. That I don't need someone else to validate my worth. Nathan made his choices. He chose to lie, to steal, to hurt the people who trusted him most. Now he has to live with those choices. I hope prison gives him time to reflect on the pain he's caused. I hope he finds a way to become a better person. As for me, I'm moving forward. I'm rebuilding my life, my finances, my sense of self. Nathan took a lot from me, but he didn't take everything. He didn't take my resilience, my intelligence, or my capacity to heal. I don't forgive him. I may never forgive him. But I refuse to let what he did define the rest of my life. I'm more than his victim. I'm a survivor. When I finished reading, Rachel was crying. Elena, that's perfect. That's exactly what you need to say. The courtroom was packed for sentencing. All 12 of Nathan's other victims were there, and many had written their own impact statements. The local news had sent a reporter. Nathan's parents sat in the back row, his mother weeping quietly. I went first. Standing at the podium, facing Judge Okoye with Nathan sitting just a few feet away, I felt strangely calm. I read my statement in a clear, steady voice. I didn't look at Nathan. I wasn't speaking to him. I was speaking for myself, for all of us he'd hurt. When I finished and returned to my seat, Patricia squeezed my hand. Well done. Dr. Chun went next, describing how Nathan's theft had destroyed his retirement plans and forced him to continue working into his 70s. Margaret Yates spoke about the financial insecurity that now plagued her days, the fear of ending up homeless. James talked about the betrayal of friendship, how hard it was to trust anyone now. By the time everyone had spoken, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom, except Nathan's. He sat stone-faced throughout, showing no emotion. Judge Okoye called a brief recess, then returned to deliver her sentence. Mr. Reed, I have presided over many fraud cases in my career, but few have demonstrated such callousness and premeditation as yours. You systematically targeted people who trusted you, your wife, your friends, your colleagues, and you exploited that trust for personal gain. You showed no remorse until you were caught, and even then, your remorse seems directed primarily at your own circumstances rather than the harm you caused. The plea agreement recommends 8 years. I am sentencing you to 10 years in federal prison, with credit for time served. You will also pay full restitution to all victims, with payments beginning immediately upon your release and continuing until the debt is satisfied. This court will retain jurisdiction over restitution compliance. Additionally, upon release, you will be subject to 5 years of supervised probation with restrictions on your financial activities. You will not be permitted to work in any position involving access to other people's money without explicit approval from your probation officer. Do you have anything to say before this court is adjourned? Nathan stood slowly. For a moment, I thought he might apologize, might finally take real accountability. Instead, he said, I hope you're all happy now. I made mistakes, but destroying my life won't fix yours. The courtroom erupted. Judge Okoye banged her gavel. That's enough, Mr. Reed. Remove him from the courtroom. As the bailiffs led Nathan away, he didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Patricia handled most of the questions, but one reporter called out directly to me. Mrs. Reed, how do you feel about the sentence? I paused, considering. Then I stepped up to the microphone. I feel like justice was served. My ex-husband hurt a lot of people, and he needs to face consequences for that. But more than anything, I feel relieved. This chapter is finally over, and I can start rebuilding my life. Will you ever be able to trust again? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm going to try. Because the alternative is letting what he did poison the rest of my life, and I won't give him that power. That evening, all of the victims went out to dinner together, a strange, bittersweet celebration. We toasted to justice, to survival, to moving forward. Dr. Chin picked up the tab, insisting it was the least he could do. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, we echoed. Walking back to my car afterward, I realized I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of uncertainty, of waiting for resolution, had finally lifted. Nathan would spend the next decade in prison. I had my life back. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but maybe it was the life I needed. The divorce was finalized 3 months after Nathan's sentencing. I kept my maiden name, Vasquez, and legally changed everything back. It felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd lost. The first few months were the hardest. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, panic flooding through me, convinced I'd made a terrible mistake. What if Nathan had been telling the truth about something? What if I'd overreacted? Then I'd remember the offshore accounts, the forged signatures, the 12 other victims, and the panic would fade into cold clarity. Dr. Hammond helped me work through what she called trauma bonding. Your brain formed neural pathways around Nathan for 7 years, she explained. Those don't just disappear because you now know he was lying. You're literally rewiring your brain, and that takes time. I threw myself into work. My company had been supportive throughout the trial, and now they offered me a promotion. Senior Vice President of Marketing Strategy. It meant more money, more responsibility, more travel. I took it without hesitation. Staying busy meant less time to think, less time to feel. But Rachel worried about me. Elena, when was the last time you did something just for fun? Something that wasn't work or therapy or court appearances. I couldn't remember. You need to live again, she said gently. Not just survive. Live. So I started small. I joined a book club. Took a pottery class on Saturday mornings. Started hiking the trails around Mount Rainier on weekends. Slowly, carefully, I began to remember who I'd been before Nathan. The version of myself who'd had hobbies and friends and a life outside of work and marriage. One afternoon, while hiking near Rattlesnake Ledge, I stopped at an overlook and looked out at the mountains stretching into the distance. The view was breathtaking, all that space, all that possibility. For the first time in over a year, I felt something other than pain or anger. I felt hope. The first restitution check arrived 8 months after sentencing. It was for $2,847, a tiny fraction of what Nathan had stolen, but it was something. Patricia had explained that the offshore accounts had been seized and liquidated, and the money was being distributed proportionally among all the victims. You'll never get everything back, she'd warned. The crypto losses are gone forever, and much of the money he spent is unrecoverable. But over the next several years, as Nathan works in prison and his assets continue to be sold, you should receive at least 40 to 50% of what was stolen from you. I deposited the check and felt nothing. The money didn't erase what had happened. It didn't give me back the 7 years I'd lost. But it was acknowledgement, in a strange way. Proof that what happened to me was real and wrong. Dr. Chin called me when he received his first check. It's not much, but it's a start. How are you holding up? Better than I expected, I admitted. Some days are hard, but most days now I'm okay. That's progress. I'm proud of you, Elena. You could have crumbled under all this, but you didn't. The victims group stayed in touch. We'd meet for dinner every few months, share updates on our lives, support each other through the hard days. These people, who'd started as strangers bound by tragedy, had become friends. Margaret Yates became almost a surrogate mother to me, checking in regularly, inviting me to her book club. "You remind me of my daughter," she told me once. "Strong, even when you don't feel like it." I ran into Sophia at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill 18 months after Nathan's sentencing. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd cut her hair short and dyed it blonde. When our eyes met, she froze. "Elena." "Hi." "Sophia." I didn't know what else to say. She hesitated, then asked, "Can I buy you a coffee? I've wanted to apologize properly for a long time." We sat outside, two women who'd been unwitting players in the same con. "I moved back to California," Sophia said. "San Francisco. Fresh start. But I'm visiting a friend this week, and I couldn't help thinking about you, about what happened." "How are you doing?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Therapy. Lots of therapy. I have trust issues now, which I guess makes sense." She laughed bitterly. "I haven't dated anyone since. I'm too scared of missing the signs again. I know that feeling. Do you hate me?" The question was blunt but vulnerable. I thought about it. "No. I did at first. But you were a victim too. Nathan manipulated both of us. You didn't know he was stealing from me or running a Ponzi scheme. You thought he was separated and honestly interested in you. I still feel guilty. If I hadn't been in the picture, maybe you would have noticed the financial stuff sooner. Or maybe I would have ignored it longer, thinking everything was fine in our marriage. There's no point in playing what if." I sipped my coffee. Nathan made his choices. We both have to make ours now. I choose not to let what he did poison the rest of my life. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saying that. I needed to hear it." We talked for another hour, comparing therapy notes and sharing the awkward, painful process of learning to trust our own judgment again. When we parted, we exchanged numbers. "I'm glad we ran into each other," Sophia said. "Me too. And I meant it. I met Daniel Cortez at a marketing conference in Portland 2 years after Nathan's arrest. He was giving a presentation on ethical business practices. Ironic, given my history, and something about his directness and honesty caught my attention. We ended up at the hotel bar that evening, along with several other conference attendees. Daniel was funny, self-deprecating, and refreshingly normal. He worked for a nonprofit focused on financial literacy education for underserved communities. "So what brings you to the dark side of marketing?" he joked. "Someone has to help the good guys get their message out too," I replied. We talked for hours after everyone else had left, about work and books and the best hiking trails in the Pacific Northwest. He didn't ask about my personal life, didn't press for information I wasn't ready to share. It was easy, comfortable. When the bar closed, he walked me to the elevator. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "If you're interested. Maybe coffee next time I'm in Seattle." I hesitated. The old fear rose up. What if I was wrong about him? What if I missed something? What if I got hurt again? But then I thought about what I'd told Sophia. I choose not to let what Nathan did poison the rest of my life. "I'd like that," I said. Daniel and I dated for 6 months before I told him about Nathan. We'd kept things casual, coffee dates, museum visits, long walks through the city. He never pushed for more, never asked why I was so cautious. Finally, over dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant, I decided he deserved to know. "There's something I need to tell you about my past." He put down his fork, his expression open and patient. "Okay." I told him everything. The discovery, the fraud, the trial, the prison sentence. He listened without interrupting, his face cycling through shock, anger, and sympathy. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Thank you for trusting me with that," he said finally. "That must have been incredibly difficult to live through." It was. And I need you to know that I'm still working through it. I'm in therapy. I have trust issues. I'm probably going to be cautious and suspicious in ways that don't make sense sometimes. That's understandable. You survived something traumatic. I just need you to be patient with me. And honest. Brutally, almost painfully honest. I need to know that what I'm seeing is real. Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. "Elena, I can't promise I'll never make mistakes or that we'll never have problems. But I can promise you this. I will never lie to you. If you ask me a question, I'll tell you the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. And if there's ever anything you want to verify, my finances, my phone, whatever, I'll show you. No secrets." Something in my chest loosened. "Thank you. And for what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. You could have let what happened destroy you, but you didn't. You rebuilt your life. That takes strength. 3 years after Nathan's sentencing, I received a letter from him. It was forwarded through Patricia's office, and she called to warn me before I opened it. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. I can have my assistant draft a response telling him not to contact you again. What does it say? I haven't read it. It's addressed to you personally. I picked up the letter that evening, Daniel sitting beside me on the couch for support. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Elena, I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't expect forgiveness or even acknowledgement. But I needed to write it anyway. I've spent the last 3 years in prison thinking about what I did. Not just the fraud and the lies, but the deeper damage, the way I treated you, the way I treated everyone who trusted me. For a long time, I tried to justify it. Told myself I'd meant well, that my plans would have worked if circumstances had been different, that people were overreacting. It took my cellmate, a man serving time for vehicular manslaughter, to make me see the truth. He said, "At least I can say my crime was a mistake, a split-second decision I'd give anything to take back. But you woke up every morning and chose to hurt people. That's worse." He was right. I chose to lie to you every single day for 7 years. I chose to steal from you, to forge your signature, to gaslight you when you question things. I chose to build a relationship with Sophia using money that wasn't mine. I chose to run a Ponzi scheme that destroyed people's retirements and savings. I can't undo any of it. I can't give you back the years I stole or the trust one destroyed. I can't restore Dr. Chen's retirement or Margaret's security or James's friendship. The damage I caused is permanent. But I wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did. I understand that I wasn't just a man who made bad decisions. I was someone who systematically exploited the people who cared about me most. I was a predator, and you were my primary victim. I'm working with a prison psychologist now, trying to understand why I did what I did. The answers aren't pretty. Narcissism, entitlement, a fundamental lack of empathy that I masked with charm and lies. I don't know if I can change those things, but I'm trying. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. You deserved a partner who respected you, who was honest with you, who valued you as a person rather than as a resource to exploit. I'm sorry I wasn't that person. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you found happiness. I hope you've rebuilt your life into something beautiful. And I hope that someday, the memory of me fades enough that it doesn't hurt anymore. I won't contact you again. Nathan. I folded the letter carefully and set it aside. Daniel watched me, concern in his eyes. How do you feel? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe he's really changed. Part of me thinks this is just another manipulation. Does it matter? Whether he's changed or not, it doesn't change what happened. He was right. Nathan's growth, or lack thereof, wasn't my responsibility. I'd spent 3 years rebuilding myself. Whether he did the same was up to him. I took the letter and put it in a folder with all the other documents from that time in my life. The court records, the divorce papers, the restitution statements. Then I put the folder in a box on the top shelf of my closet. What are you going to do with it? Daniel asked. Nothing. It's just part of the story now. Not the whole story, just a chapter. 6 months later, Daniel asked me to move in with him. We were having breakfast at his apartment when he brought it up. I know we've been taking things slow, and I respect that. But Elena, I love you. I want to build a life with you. What do you think about looking for a place together? My first instinct was fear. Moving in together meant combining finances, sharing space, making myself vulnerable again. But then I looked at Daniel, kind, patient, honest Daniel who'd never given me a reason to doubt him. I'd like that, I said. But I need to keep my finances separate for a while. And I need us to do premarital counseling, even though we're not engaged. I need to know we can communicate clearly about everything. Whatever you need, he said simply. We found a condo in Fremont with a view of the water. It wasn't as big as the apartment I'd shared with Nathan, but it was ours, a space we chose together, free from old ghosts. Rachel helped me move, along with Margaret and Dr. Chen. We made a party of it, ordering pizza and unpacking boxes late into the night. Look at you, Rachel said, hugging me tight. I'm so proud of how far you've come. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to. For years after Nathan's sentencing, I received word that he was being released early for good behavior. He'd served 6 years of his 10-year sentence and would spend the rest on supervised probation. Patricia called to let me know. He's not allowed to contact you directly. The restraining order is still in effect. But I wanted you to be aware he'll be out. Where will he go? His brother arranged for him to stay in Tacoma, work for a construction company doing administrative work. He'll be monitored closely. I told Daniel that evening. He wrapped his arms around me. Are you okay? I think so. It's strange. I thought I'd be more afraid, but mostly I just feel indifferent. He's just a person now, not this monster in my nightmares. 2 weeks later, I saw him. I was having coffee with Margaret at a cafe near Pike Place Market when he walked in. He looked older, grayer, worn down by prison. He didn't see me at first. Then our eyes met. He froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Nathan did something unexpected. He nodded once, respectfully, and turned to leave. He didn't try to approach me or speak to me. He just acknowledged my existence and walked away. Margaret gripped my hand. Are you all right? Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I am. That was the last time I saw Nathan. He kept his distance, honored the boundaries, and slowly faded into being just another person in the city. Someone I used to know, once upon a time. Daniel proposed on a hiking trail overlooking the Olympic Mountains, 2 years after we moved in together. It was a clear spring day, the kind where you can see forever. Elena Vasquez, he said, kneeling on the rocky path. You are the strongest, most resilient person I know. You've taught me what it means to truly trust someone, to earn that trust every single day. I love you. Will you marry me? I looked at this man who'd been patient with my fears, honest about everything, who'd shown me that not everyone was like Nathan, who'd proven, day after day, that real love wasn't about control or manipulation. It was about partnership and respect. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll marry you. We got married in a small ceremony at Golden Gardens Park, surrounded by the people who'd helped me survive. Rachel, Margaret, Dr. Chun, Patricia, even Sophia, who'd flown in from San Francisco. Dr. Hammond came too, smiling with professional pride. During my vows, I spoke directly to Daniel, but really to everyone there. I used to think trust was about blind faith. That if you loved someone, you didn't question them. I was wrong. Real trust is built on transparency, on honesty, on someone proving day after day that they're worthy of your faith. Daniel, you've shown me what healthy love looks like. You've never asked me to ignore my instincts or doubt my perceptions. You've made yourself known to me, fully and completely. And that's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. There wasn't a dry eye under the ceremony tent. 5 years after Nathan's arrest, I was invited to speak at a conference on financial abuse. The organizers had heard my story and thought my perspective would help others recognize the warning signs. I almost said no. Talking about Nathan, about that dark time, still wasn't easy. But then I thought about all the people who might be living through their own version of my nightmare, not yet aware that something was wrong. So I stood on stage in front of 300 people and told my story. Not just the facts, but the feelings, the confusion, the self-doubt, the slow dawning horror. I talked about the warning signs I'd missed. The isolation, the financial control, the gaslighting. If you take nothing else from my story, I said, take this. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And you don't owe anyone, not even your spouse, blind trust. Real love can withstand questions. Real love welcomes transparency. Real love doesn't ask you to ignore your own judgment. After my talk, dozens of people approached me. Some were survivors sharing their own stories. Others were still in the middle of their situations, scared and confused, not sure if what they were experiencing was abuse. One woman, probably in her 30s, gripped my hands with tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I've been telling myself I'm paranoid for months. But hearing you describe what happened to you, it's exactly what I'm going through. You just gave me permission to trust myself again. That night, lying in bed next to Daniel in our home filled with the life we'd built together, I realized something profound. Nathan had taken so much from me, but he'd also inadvertently given me something. The ability to recognize manipulation, to trust my own judgment, to demand transparency and honesty in my relationships. I was stronger now than I'd ever been before. Not because of what he did, but because of how I survived it. 7 years after Nathan's sentencing, I received the final restitution check. With all the payments combined, I'd recovered about 60% of what he'd stolen. Not everything, but more than I'd expected. I took that check and did something I'd been planning for years. I donated half of it to the nonprofit Daniel worked for, specifically to their financial literacy program. The other half, I put in a trust fund, not for myself, but for young women escaping financial abuse. The Elena Vasquez Fund for Financial Independence. Rachel read from the legal documents. Elena, this is amazing. It feels right. Nathan stole my mother's money and used it for destruction. I want to take what I got back and use it to help other people build better lives. The fund would provide no-strings-attached grants to women leaving financially abusive relationships, money for deposits on new apartments, for lawyers, for starting over. Everything I'd needed when I was first trying to escape, but had lost because of Nathan's theft. Margaret helped me set it up, and several of the other victims contributed to it as well. Dr. Chin donated $10,000. It's the best use of that restitution money I can think of, he said. I'm sitting on the deck of our house. Daniel and I bought a small place on Bainbridge Island last year, watching the sunset paint the water pink and gold. Our daughter, Sophia, is 3 years old now, playing with blocks inside while Daniel makes dinner. Sophia. We named her partly after Sophia Chen, who's become a good friend over the years. She's married now, too, to a woman named Claire who works as a therapist. Sophia jokes that they're both so careful about communication in their relationship that it's almost comical, but it works for them. Nathan has been out of prison for 2 years. I heard through Marcus that he's working as a bookkeeper, living alone, keeping his head down. He paid his last restitution installment 6 months ago. Our connection is finally completely severed. The last time I thought about him was a month ago, when I found an old photo album while cleaning out the garage. There we were, smiling on our wedding day, looking so young and hopeful. I studied Nathan's face in the photo, trying to see the monster I now knew was there. But all I saw was a man who made terrible choices, who hurt people, who couldn't see past his own needs. I showed the photo to Daniel. Do you want to keep it? I thought about it. Then I carefully removed the photo, tore Nathan out of it, and put just my portion back in the album. I want to remember who I was then, but I don't need to remember him. These days, I volunteer twice a month with survivors of financial abuse. I help them navigate the legal system, understand their rights, and rebuild their financial independence. Every time I help someone see through their abuser's lies, every time I watch someone choose themselves over a toxic relationship, I feel a little more healed. Dr. Hammond told me years ago that trauma doesn't just damage you, it can transform you if you let it. I didn't believe her then, but I do now. I'm not the woman Nathan married. That Elena was trusting to the point of naivety, willing to sacrifice everything for someone else's approval, terrified of being alone. The woman I am now knows her worth. She trusts carefully but completely. She demands honesty and transparency. She won't settle for less than she deserves. And on the hard days, because there are still hard days, even now, I remember something Margaret told me during those early dark months. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become afterward. I chose to become someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who could take her pain and turn it into purpose. Nathan tried to destroy me. Instead, he accidentally created the version of me that could never be destroyed again. So what's the lesson here? What should you take away from my story? It's this: trust isn't about blind faith. It's about someone earning your confidence every single day through their actions, not just their words. Real love doesn't ask you to doubt yourself. Real love doesn't require you to ignore your instincts or sacrifice your security. If something feels wrong, investigate. If someone makes you feel crazy for asking questions, that's a red flag. If your partner controls your finances, isolates you from friends and family, or makes you doubt your own perceptions, those aren't signs of love. They're signs of abuse. You deserve transparency. You deserve honesty. You deserve a partner who sees you as an equal, not a resource to exploit. And if you're living through your own version of my nightmare right now, know this: you are stronger than you think. You can survive this. You can rebuild. You can heal. It won't be easy. It will hurt more than you can imagine. But on the other side of that pain is a version of yourself that you never knew existed. Someone fierce and resilient and absolutely unbreakable. Trust yourself. Choose yourself. Save yourself. Because in the end, no one else can do it for you. My name is Elena Vasquez. This was my story. And if it helps even one person recognize the truth about their own situation, then every moment of pain was worth it. Don't let someone else's lies define your reality. You deserve better. You deserve the truth. And you deserve a life built on honesty, respect, and genuine love. If this story resonated with you, if it helped you see something clearly for the first time, if it gave you the courage to trust yourself, share it. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear it. And they need to know survival is possible. Healing is possible. Happiness is possible. Even after everything falls apart.